J.J. McCarthy might not want us to do this, Andrew Krammer. We're going to look at the film one way or the other. We're going to do it over his protests. I'm sure Kevin O'Connell is doing the same thing. He probably watched the film in real time in his nightmares on Sunday night and probably watched it again. But, man, it wasn't pretty again. The Vikings passing offense really until the very last drive was abysmal. McCarthy was like 11 for 26, something like that, going into the last drive. Didn't have 100 yards even until that point. They lose 19-17, kind of an all phases loss once you get down to it. But really, the reason they're in scramble mode at the end, the reason they're trailing most of this game, Andrew, is, again, a completely inefficient and ineffective passing game.
Yeah, you're right. And that's kind of where I think I would put most of the blame for this loss is how inefficient the passing game was. Kevin O'Connell finally leaned on the run game. He told players going into this game, we're going to do it. We're going to run the ball. And they did. They had a great production from Aaron Jones. Jordan Mason has back-to-back runs on that fourth quarter touchdown drive off the short field. And so it showed that other parts of the team can come around and be successful. And I thought the defense, once again, played pretty admirably considering everything. Now, there was a couple drives where they let them get run on. There was one drive there in the first half where they had 11 carries for 40-some yards on a long touchdown drive. So there were some parts that obviously were not good for the defense, but all in all, it was a good performance to keep the lid on Caleb Williams and what can be a really explosive Bears offense as we've seen this season. So it all goes back to how is McCarthy only completing 50% of his passes once again. He entered this game completing 53%, completes just 16 of 32, which is exactly half. And you see 6 drops, Mike. You go back and count them too. Like, he's not getting a lot of help from his guys. This is a week after they had 8 false start penalties, which you could probably tie back to the quarterback as well. So just as a cohesive unit, they have not come together. And with the drops too, I wonder how much of that is a factor of his tempo that he throws with. Everything is a fastball with this kid still. And you see some of those passes, like the high one to Justin Jefferson was just a rocket over the middle that he couldn't corral. Adam Thielen had a similar one over the middle that he dropped. And so Jordan Addison that hit him just right in the chest and bounced off. So there's just no connection right now with these guys. It looks really bad. And Justin Jefferson, after the game, said, if I got to pull JJ aside and just he and I get more work one-on-one, more than they've already gotten, he said, that's what we're going to do if that's what it takes. And so they're reaching the point of just having no answers beside working even harder.
That's like the practice version of a players only meeting. I don't know if we're there. I don't know if we're there yet, but man, yeah, it's not good. Like, you look at the stats, Jefferson, his production with Carson Wentz was pretty much on par with his kind of career averages, close to 100 yards a game. He's getting his catches. And the same with Hawkinson, even was getting, 4 or 5 catches a game with Wentz. Jordan Addison, who had a great connection with McCarthy during camp, during the early going before the suspension happened, before McCarthy got hurt. He hasn't been much. In fact, he did catch the touchdown to put them ahead, but until that, I think he's got less than 100 yards in these 3 games that he's been playing with McCarthy combined. Like, all of these guys who are supposed to be explosive, big parts of your offense, 2 of them very highly paid in Jefferson and Hawkinson, just aren't getting the ball. And again, you're right. When they do, sometimes they're not performing at the highest level. It is completely out of sync right now.
It is. And I did think one consistent issue among the many issues with this passing game was McCarthy not connecting with Jordan Addison downfield. I mean, it started right out of the gate with that out and up that gets just, that was in the third quarter, excuse me. The one out of the gate was the over the middle one that was a little bit late, but hits Addison right on the hands and absolutely should have been caught. And then in the third quarter, I believe it was, they had an out and up that he underthrew so badly. 2 Bears collided and got injured trying to intercept it. And then the one before halftime was a similar out and up that was underthrown that the 6-foot corner, the Bears corner, Nashon Wright, jumped up and made a play on. So that's 3 attempts to connect with Jordan Addison downfield, one of which should have been caught. The other 2 were just very poorly thrown balls. And I forgot, actually, there was another one. There was the deep play action over on the first half. This might have been the first quarter.
Yeah.
It looked like it got hunted like a pheasant out of the sky and just dropped. And I just didn't understand what happened to that pass. It fell about 5-7 yards shy of where it should have. And Addison had to just kind of stop his his route and couldn't make a play on it. It was four different misconnections with Addison deep downfield that we've seen Carson Wentz make it. It just shows how raw and inexperienced the young JJ is, and how his accuracy, his habits, they can just come and go in the blink of an eye. Because O'Connell talked too afterward. He talked during the week and he talked after the game about how he saw good things from McCarthy in terms of his fundamentals, footwork, how he was throwing the ball with a bruised right hand, and some of it just melts away when the games kick off.
Is he just getting sped up then? Is it just like the practice reps aren't the same as game reps? You try to simulate it, but you're not getting hit. You're not getting pressured in the same way. Now, this is a kid, though, that has a lot of poise, that has a lot of kind of what you think of the intangibles. So you think or you hope that those moments aren't too big, but it does seem like his clock is getting sped up when he gets moved off of his spot, as they like to say. He's not being able to reset or find his throwing lanes in the way that you would want him to. So passes are still getting deflected a couple times or flat out batted down. And everything's just off by, even if it's 0.2 of a second, like that's it. That's all it takes for an open receiver to be covered. It's all it takes for pressure to get there. But I can't tell if it's just a little bit off or if it's just like fundamentally not there right now.
Well, yeah, the timing, and I think fundamentally it just does not look like it's there right now with everything that has gone wrong on his various passing plays. Like I can go down, actually made a list because of how many things that were popping up, but in some of which I've already mentioned, so forgive me. But to go through the list of it, underthrew Addison on the possible deep play action shot we talked about. He threw wide of Justin Jefferson on the initial failed third down where a defender dropped, and I think that was more of a decision-making issue. He probably shouldn't have even thrown that pass. Later on, there was a negative 3-yard dump off to Josh Oliver in which he just continued his rollout into pressure when he should have sensed it and stopped. That felt like a robotic move where he's so locked in downfield, he's not sensing what's around him. The Addison drop over the middle, I thought was a late throw. The third down wheel route to Aaron Jones was with solid protection, but it felt like a rushed read, even though it was a good one, because Jalen Naylor in a mesh concept against man coverage, which he read to throw that ball to Aaron Jones, is going to be springing wide open across on the right side of the field. And he just eschews that, goes for Aaron Jones, and it's a hurried pass that he does not catch. The interception, he attempts a deep over route to Jefferson in which he has pressure from Will Fries, kind of cuts him off. He can't step into that throw. And he said that played a factor in Kevin Byard dropping to pick it off. Hawkinson was just him being sped up and throwing. This was a deep fake kind of screen they did where Hawkinson springs loose downfield. The ball just goes way out in front of him. Like all these different issues. So you ask, is it just not there? All these things combined, that was just the first half, I think. All these things combined just to me show that mentally he seems to have, I don't know if it's the yips or what it is, but something in his head when he gets into these games, he's playing so robotic and missing things and doesn't seem to have an innate feel. And it goes to the pocket presence you're talking about. It goes to the fundamentals. O'Connell's talked about his throwing mechanics and how there's just bad habits that can creep up with his base and his footwork and his leg whip that he has after he throws. All these things that can kind of elongate the process or cause inaccuracies. This all kind of creeps up. And even last night, O'Connell was asked, like, did you see this stuff in college? And O'Connell indicated that it's gotten worse. He said, no, I did not see. I thought a lot of his best plays at Michigan were on weighty, third down, gotta have it kind of plays for a national champion. And so I think some of this stuff seems like he needs to be put back in the incubator a little bit and kind of, I saw Mina Kimes use the phrase, put the bird back in the oven or whatever. Like that just seems like what you need for this young kid right now, but they don't have that option right now because the only guy behind him is Max Brosmer.
Well, yeah, and like it's a paradox, right? Like he's only going to get better with experience, but you don't want to fail a young quarterback, as they say, by putting him into a situation that he's not comfortable in. But he should be comfortable enough, even with limited reps. This is year 2, okay? This is not year 1. I know he missed all last year, but he was in the system. He was able to probably to absorb a lot of these things. Like he doesn't need to sit anymore. He needs to play and get better. But to your point, he's missing on a lot of these things. Now, I do wonder at a certain point, like, is the way he played on that last drive where they go ahead where he completes, I think, 5 of 6 passes, whatever it was. The only incomplete, I think, is the drop. It was a bat down, and there was a drop by Hawkinson on that last drive. Is there evidence in that he's in his own head, and maybe O'Connell's in his head too much sometimes on these earlier downs, like giving him all this information before the 15-second, before you get to 15 seconds, he's carrying this all up to the line, and then he's just not able to translate that into a clean kind of in rhythm, instinctive kind of play. Because he seemed to play instinctively in that last drive, and it ended in a touchdown.
Yeah, and I do think there's a point to that where even some of his best plays too came right on the failed hurry-up drive before halftime, where he did march them down the field before throwing the late out and up to Addison that got picked off. I do think there's something to a rhythm and tempo that we're not seeing the Vikings use a lot of. We're not seeing a lot of hurry-up. They initiated it a little bit on the first drive, but that's when you have more of your scripted plays and you have, this is what we've practiced, and there's just more of a trust built in and a rhythm of what you want to get to right out of the gate. And yeah, I do wonder how much overthinking there is, or I don't want to say overcoaching, because we see it work with some guys, but maybe with where McCarthy is mentally, maybe there is an overloading of information in those moments that you're talking about. I do think that they simplified some things. They simplified the cadence for one. O'Connell said they pretty much went to a dumbed down cadence.
It's like Downset Hut, basically.
Yeah, he said it's something that, lower levels of college, lower levels of football could use. And I would assume that means college. And so I think they have simplified things to some extent. It did seem like McCarthy was tinkering with things less at the line of scrimmage. It didn't seem like he was checking as much. It seemed like things were more straightforward for them. But this offense is still built on getting into the premium looks against what the defense shows you. Maybe some of the simplification was just straight up just hand off. Like, we're not going to have a check into a pass here. Like, it did seem like the Bears loaded up at times to stop the run, and the Vikings still ran anyway. And we're not used to seeing that from Kevin O'Connell's play calling. So I think we've seen those steps that you're talking about. What I would like to see, maybe, I don't know the rhyme or rhythm of why this couldn't occur unless it's too simple for them. But in terms of more up tempo, more just, we're going to get into, these packaged 3 plays or whatever that we're going to run on the next 3 downs, and we're going to hurry up to the line, and we're not going to let the defense get set. But so much of what they do is built off of motion. It's built off of giving the quarterback tells before the snap. Like, they're not built to be this air raid, hurry up kind of system. So it does kind of fly in the face of the principles that Kevin O'Connell keeps talking about that they want to stick to with how this offense is supposed to be run.
So we'll move off McCarthy in a minute, talk defense and special teams, and maybe a little bit of the guys around him. But like, where do they? It's like, as I've talked about, I think with Royce, it's like it's almost a paradox where losing this game means you definitely give McCarthy more playing time now, because the playoff kind of potential is pretty much gone. It's not like you're mathematically eliminated, but 4-6 feels a lot different than 5-5. At that point, you're like, I don't know how close O'Connell might have been to thinking, oh, maybe we give Max Brosmer a try. He got asked, but didn't say after the game on Sunday. But like, if you're trying to win games, at some point you might be like, man, he just doesn't have it today. We got to try something else. Now it's all about development. So what do we need to see in these next 7 games, presumably, to make everybody in the organization feel better about 2026 at least?
Yeah, some consistency. And look, it would have looked a lot better. Like, let's say they had half the drops. 3 of those balls are caught. He's got an extra 30-some yards. It's still, what does that do for you? It's still not making you feel much better, considering all the things that went wrong in his process, in the quarterback's attempt to get the ball out accurately and on time. So to me, what you want to see is consistency. I'm not going to blame the other guys and say they need to catch the ball. You need to see J.J. McCarthy put it in the right spot, on time, in rhythm, connect downfield with specifically 2 guys in Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. We can talk about Hawkinson, the check downs, like that all stuff is great and can work within the rhythm of what they need to do. But the meat and potatoes, the lifeblood of this offense is explosive plays down the field off of play action. they had one of them. They had the 18-yarder. One of his best plays, I thought, was a deep play action drop off an 18-yarder to number 18 over the middle against man coverage.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the kind of stuff you saw it in that game. You said, I think that was the first quarter of this game. Where was that the rest of the game? And I'm not saying that's a play calling issue. I'm saying McCarthy physically was not doing it. Those throws were there, and you weren't seeing the timing. You weren't seeing the accuracy that he had on that exact pass. So seeing that replicated 5 to 10 times throughout a game, like Sam Darnold often did, can produce you a 300-yard game and make you feel pretty good about what you got. That's asking a lot, though, from a kid that has not shown you much consistency at all at this point. So it feels like they've been taking steps back, stripping things off the car, just getting it back to the frame to figure out what do we need to put on it to make it go with McCarthy. And so I don't know if they're going to keep pushing it as much as they have downfield. Maybe they will, just out of stubbornness and out of, hey, we've got the talent, we're going to make this work. But you need to see McCarthy look so much better on those downfield passes to feel that he can be an NFL caliber quarterback, because that's what it takes.
It's weird, too, because I thought, my exposure to him in camp was more limited than yours, but I thought those were the passes that he was best at. I feel like 15 yards down the field is kind of his sweet spot, but it has not been his sweet spot so far this season.
We didn't see a whole lot of over the middle kind of catch and run stuff.
More sideline stuff that he was good at.
Okay. We did. We saw a lot more of the outbreaking stuff. We did not see a lot of, we saw Aaron Jones going deep quite a bit when he would get a linebacker singled up. So we weren't seeing tight window kind of over the middle or even in touch downfield to where a guy could catch it and run over his shoulder or whatever. We didn't see a whole lot of that. And looking back at it too, like, training camp was a lot of ups and downs. I think people get excited, and we talked about some of the good days he had. I can think back to the second day of Patriot joint practices was phenomenal for him. There was a couple days against the Vikings practices where he had like 13 or 14 completions in a row in a red zone period. Like, there were moments, but there was a lot of us writing that, hey, this kid is going through growing pains against a talented and expensive veteran defense. And we're seeing more of those growing pains now. So I don't, it's surprising that it looks this bad. Obviously, no one was expecting this. I wasn't, but to say that we were expecting him to look like Sam Darnold, I don't think anybody was. But yeah, they got to get back to somewhere in between those two things, where they're at now and where they used to be.
Oh, and that good transition point to that talented and expensive defense. They only gave up 19 points in this game, and some of that was a couple of short fields they were giving up off of the kick return and turnovers, things like that. Thought they played pretty well, but again, they're not creating turnovers, and I think some of that is just regression from last season. And a lot of last season they're playing with leads. They need some of that, though. When you're struggling on offense, you need some of those game-changing plays. They haven't had a lot of those game-changing momentum plays on defense. 4 turnovers in 9 games outside of that kind of outlier Bengals game where they got 5.
Yeah, and Caleb Williams specifically is a type of quarterback. I think he's got one of the lowest like aggressive throw rates, which is tracked by PFF to see, okay, tight window throws, putting it into traffic, like who is really trying to take some shots and some chances. And Caleb just doesn't do that. He'll hold on to the ball, he'll throw it away. And we saw that where he's not going to put a lot into play for the Vikings, but the Vikings also have been facing that script over and over, where teams come in and say, we're going to run the ball, we're going to throw short passes, get the ball out quickly. We're not going to let you affect us or disrupt what we're doing with your pressure. And that continues to set them back. They're not playing with leads. It's not forcing offenses to push the ball downfield. And then when DeAndre Swift drops a handoff like he did early in that game, you talk about regression. That's how regression happens, where it's just dumb luck, where the ball is not bouncing directly to you, it's going directly to Rome Odunze, who's the only Bear in the vicinity to recover that. Like, that's the one thing where you're just saying, okay, maybe last year, maybe that ball bounced into Isaiah Rodgers or Blake Cashman's hands or whatever. This time it's just not. So they're not getting the luck, and then they're not getting the situations because their offense is not putting them in many good situations. And frankly, their run defense, like we saw even on Sunday, like overall it was good, but it was still kind of hit and miss, where the stretches that the Bears got going, it was when they could start running the ball up the middle on this group. And I don't think they have a true good nose tackle right now. I think Javon Hargrave did not play well on Sunday again, as he hasn't at spots in his Vikings tenure. I think Levi Drake Rodriguez is not much of a nose tackle at this point. So it just seemed like they can get moved off the spot a little bit. And obviously they didn't have Jonathan Grenard either, which we should mention. They missed him, although I thought Dallas Turner played a good game.
Yeah, I thought it was one of Dallas Turner's better games, to be honest. Special teams has been one of the bright spots, I think, this season. You look at it statistically, you look at some of the big moments in the season, like the block field goal in Detroit, some of the kick returns they've had. Will Riker, nearly automatic when he's not kicking it into a wire. But in the moment where it matters most, they give a big kick return. You see Kevin O'Connell frustrated about it. He's, giving Matt Daniels. I don't know if it was two Matt Daniels, but Matt Daniels was writing his paths out on the broadcast. Like, what happened on that kick return?
That's a good question. Yeah, it looked like some of the guys got pushed out. I'm trying to remember who it was. It was Tavier Thomas or Tyler Batty, but one of the guys on that side just kind of spiked inside, took a chance, and then that kind of opened the lane. And I don't think it was Batty because the Duvernay ended up outrunning Batty, who was the closest to try to make that tackle. So it was an uncharacteristic issue for the Vikings, or mistake, because we're not used to seeing that. Obviously, Matt Daniels' groups have covered kicks fairly well, especially this season. And I went back and looked it up. That was the longest kickoff return against the Vikings since 2022, going back 3 years now. And for it to happen in that moment was why Kevin O'Connell was so upset. Because you're right, like the return phase has been huge for them, because not only have they stopped opponents from getting many big returns off, Miles Price has obviously made some big impacts, including helping them come back in this game with a 42-yard punt return that set up the short field touchdown by Jordan Mason. So it was a really bad mistake, and one that frankly felt a little bit like karma for the Vikings, of like, did they really deserve to win that game after how it looked for the young McCarthy? And then nope, they did not.
Feels like there's a lot of frustration right now. If you just watch the broadcast, you're there in the locker room. Like, do you sense, like, I don't think they haven't given up. They're just really frustrated right now.
It's anger, and I wouldn't say it's dissension. I wouldn't say it's anything that connotates bad chemistry. I don't think that's it. I think
that's fair.
I think this locker room is together. I just think they're mad. I think they're mad at the situation. They're mad at because the expectations going in, however high fans thought this team could go, the guys inside the locker room thought they could be even better. And that's the disappointing part for being 4-6 through 10 games. If you're them, if you're Jonathan Allen, who signed a big deal to come here, same with Javon Hargrave, who has not lived up to the big deal he signed to come here, Will Fries, like these guys all thought they were kind of putting together something that could produce right away. And they bought themselves a window, with the core they've built, with the talent they have. It's not all over just because this season didn't work out. But people thought this was going to be maybe Kevin O'Connell's first playoff win team, and it doesn't even seem like they're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, they might not lose a playoff game this year. At least there's that.
That's true.
All right, well, at Green Bay next week, at Seattle the week after that. Doesn't get any easier. If you had to look at this 10-game stretch, even with that kind of beefy part in the middle, they left some opportunities out there. I feel like with adequate quarterback play, they'd be 6-4 right now, not 4-6, and that's probably what's got them the most frustrated.
Yeah, and especially when you look at this division and how the Lions lose last night to the Philadelphia Eagles, the Packers are almost losing games that they shouldn't be. They seem very vulnerable, and you haven't even faced them yet. I think you're right. If this team had adequate quarterback play, what should have been the expectation for J.J. McCarthy? I think that's the big question everybody wants to know. And how did the front office kind of let them get to this point? But you obviously bet on the reigning NFL Coach of the Year to get the most out of a young kid, and it just seems, unfortunately, through injuries, through playing just 5 games so far, it has not worked out. And I think that can't be understated. They're 4-6. He's only started 5 of those games, and they haven't looked good, but they're 2-3 in those 5 games somehow. And it speaks to the talent that they've got around him. And I do think they're going to win some more games with him moving forward. I don't know how many that's going to be.
I don't either. We'll see if they do it next week. Andrew, appreciate it. We'll talk to you again next week.
Sounds good, Mike. Thanks.